On this episode of Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery, I'm going to talk you through the behind the scenes in my practice on what I do to keep track of and manage all of the moving parts of a fee-based financial planning business.
Running a successful fee-based financial planning business is tough, and escaping the shackles of a commission-based financial planning practice is terrifying. When all you want to do is learn from those who know, learn from financial planners who are there on the front lines doing it each and every day. What if you could just open their kimono and take a look inside to learn what works and what doesn't? Now there's a place where the secrets to running a fee-based financial planning business are revealed to those who believe. Fee-based Financial Planning Mastery. Ease your mind.
Hi everyone, it's Scott Plaskett here, and thanks for joining me. In this podcast, you will learn what's working and what's not in the world of fee-based financial planning. In each episode, I'm going to open my kimono and let you take an insider's look at what's working and what's not in my practice to help you take your business to the next level. I've been a fee-based certified financial planner since the early 90s, so believe me, I know the challenges you're facing. So get ready to learn not from a teacher, coach, or guru, but from a colleague who's on the front lines just like you. And I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my email internet newsletter to get the most up-to-date tips on how to build and grow your fee-based financial planning practice by going to feebasedfinancialplanningmastery.com. You know, I've always said if you want something done, give it to a busy person. Those have been no truer words have ever been spoken, because if you want to get it done, make sure you're not giving it to somebody that's got a lot of time available to them. Bottom line is that if you commit to a lot of activities, you force yourself to pay attention and to stay organized. Fortunately, I've incorporated some great tools to help with all of that. And these tools allow me and my family the ability to keep things organized without a lot of effort. I highly recommend and encourage each of your family members to get a Gmail account so that you can take advantage of the easy integration and collaboration benefits that come from an amazing suite of organizational tools that Gmail has to offer. I mean, it's a phenomenal program when you can consider that basically by getting a free account, suddenly you can communicate with, you can put your information on other people's calendars. You can book appointments with people. It all integrates with all your other software. It's just an amazing program. So definitely, if you want to organize not only your business, but your personal life, take advantage of that and get every family member that you have on a Gmail account, and you're going to just start to embrace some of the organizational abilities that come with that. Now, on a personal front, my kids are going to be part of a dance group that will be performing at the halftime show for the Harlem Globetrotters this coming weekend. Now, although the Generals don't have a hope in winning against the Globetrotters, I always kind of root for them. On the financial planning front, I'm just going to give you a bit of an update on what's going on in my world. On the financial planning front, it's amazing what happens when you see hiring an employee as an investment as opposed to an expense. You see, recently I hired a marketing assistant, and although we're still in the learning curve phase, we're getting more and more done, and that's fantastic. I really see that investment is truly paying dividends. On the Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery podcast front, I haven't actually done a deep dive, but it looks like I now have listeners from around the globe. In my stats program that shows where people are listening to the show from, it shows the subscribers to the show touch every country from around the globe. Blows me away to see when you get this. There's a great little tool, basically shows a map of the world, and then it highlights on the map all the places that people are listening from. And it pretty much filled in the entire map. So anyways, I hope to accept a lot of the wonderful dinner invitations that I've received from a lot of the listeners as well. I seem to get, people saying, hey, listen, thanks so much for everything you've done. I love the show. Next time you're in Ireland, or next time you're in the UK, or next time you're in South Africa, or wherever it happens to be, give me a call, let me know, and I'll definitely take you for a drink, take you for dinner, whatever. Well, I hope to. And I really want to do some more travel. And so when I do, if I'm going to be reaching out or traveling out to an area, I'm going to reach out to the listeners and say, listen, I'm going to be out in this neck of the woods at some point in time. If I'm out there and it's anywhere near where you are and you want to get together for a drink and just say hi, then let's do that. So I look forward to that. That's really, I never ever thought that would come of this, but from a show like this that seems to reach all around the globe. It's just kind of cool to have friends in all these great places. Now, on the Academy front, on the Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery Academy front, this has proven to be a huge success, not because we have Academy members from a ton of different areas of the world, but because what we're doing in the Academy is making a difference. First of all, it's making a difference to the members who have implemented the tools and strategies outlined in the Academy. I mean, the last call we had a coaching call, and one of the students basically said, listen, everybody, I want you to know, I went ahead, I did exactly what this strategy was, and suddenly, the client was willing just to simply write me a check right then and there for the financial planning fee, and it was phenomenal. It was sort of the least resistance that I've ever experienced. So it was really a great call. It's just nice to hear that people are implementing the strategies, because that's where you get the value out of a program like this. That's where you get the value out of a podcast like this, is taking a piece of information and implementing it. But more importantly, it's making a difference to the industry. I'm now getting more and more emails from students who are graduating from their CFP program who are really stuck. They're stuck because they feel like they're being forced into a career channel that's pushing them to sell products as opposed to planning first. The financial planning industry around the world is facing the exact problem. Graduates are being released with a lot of theoretical knowledge. And those of you listening to this show who are practicing financial planners know that theory will only get you so far. I remember meeting with a graduate student who basically we were considering hiring them. And when I asked her to bring to me a sample financial plan that she had written, she said that they had never written a full financial plan before. And I said, well, what are you talking about? You've never written a full financial plan. And she said, well, the program we did to get our CFP, it was never a requirement to actually go through a complete financial plan. Heck, I remember when I got my CFP, I had to write a full financial plan from scratch by hand for my final exam. And the CFP program is telling the graduates that they can't get their CFP without 2 years of experience. Now, the problem with that is that most reputable firms don't have a place in the foundation, in their foundation to train anybody. So, good firms aren't hiring these people for, I think, 2 reasons. The first reason is they don't have the resources to put into training someone else, how to do a proper financial plan and all that sort of stuff. I mean, really, when you can operate a financial planning firm, you can do it pretty lean and mean, and bringing somebody else on, you don't always have the time available for that. Now, if they did have the time, it would be a risky proposition, because the fear is, and this is a real fear, that you'll spend time and money training these people. And then when they're fully trained, they'll walk with your clients, open up shop down the street on their own, and basically walk away from that. And so all that time and effort putting into training somebody is potentially going down the drain. So this is where I think the Academy may have some extra value. And I think after having gone through this experience and communicating with some people, I think the Academy is a great tool for this. Those who don't want to get sucked into the product manufacturer route. And what I mean by that is simply, when you seems like when you come out of the CFP, you get your licenses for investments or insurance, or whatever, and then you go to a broker dealer or an insurance company or whatever, and what they do is they put you into sales training, and they don't really focus on financial planning. Well, that's really where most people who are coming out of their CFP, that's what's motivating them in the first place. But problem is, the industry is so built on sales that they don't really have a lot of financial planning training, and so it just doesn't seem to work. However, if you then join the Academy to get real-world advice, it's going to make a big difference, because the one thing that people don't have is they don't have the ability to walk into another financial planning firm and say, listen, I've done everything I need to. I've written financial plans, and I've got a business plan in place, and I know exactly what I need to do to get things done. However, I don't want to do it on my own. I want to build my business with your brand. So it's just an interesting spin on things. When you go through the Academy, you always have access to it as a refresher. And if you're a student and you've never been out there doing any financial planning before, It's a great tool because it gives you that roadmap, that track to run on. And so you'll be able to walk into any financial planning firm and simply say, listen, here's my sample financial plan. Here's my marketing plan. I'd like to represent you and help you build your brand while I build my business. This, to me, is the way the industry needs to go and is probably going to go, because that's where the marketplace, that's what they're demanding. They're demanding financial planning first. And if you can embrace that and sort of follow that methodology, I think you're going to have a huge leg up going forward. So that's where things are at on the Academy front, and it's really kind of interesting the way things are sort of navigating. We're navigating through that and getting exposure to some really great people. Now, I will say this now, that there is the biggest opportunity available to you in the world sitting at your doorstep. Here is where I feel the biggest opportunity in our industry has ever been, and it's simply in financial planning. Financial planning is the key. It always has been and always will be. Now, consider that the vast majority of advisors promote financial planning, but only a small percentage of them actually do financial planning. And you can see how easy it is to differentiate yourself from the rest. Consider that the vast majority of advisors don't know how to have a financial planning conversation because they've been trained to come at providing financial advice backwards. And consider that the vast majority of financial advisors don't know how to present their value, and this eliminates their ability to charge a fee for the financial planning that they do. And finally, consider that the marketplace has more of a need now than ever in history for prudent financial planning advice, and that they're willing to pay you for it. If you embrace the fee-based model, you will have such a leg up on all of your competition. This is why I'm so excited for to find it, and I find it difficult to manage who we take on as new clients. Now, this is one of the sort of the positive, negative byproducts of all of this. When you embrace this model and you actually really start to implement a lot of these strategies that I talk about, what you're going to find is that you're going to start getting a lot of business. Now, this is exciting, but it's also a challenge. So I'm going to say this one more time. It's exciting, but it's also a challenge because it's very difficult to manage who you take on as new clients. You can't take on everybody because if you do, you're going to very quickly hit capacity. And that last point I just made is very important. You're going to hit capacity. So once you have a business model set up that allows you to attract new, pre-educated, predisposed, and very motivated prospective clients on an automated basis, you will need to understand very quickly who you should and who you shouldn't work with. You can't work with everyone. Trying to do so will actually be seen as a negative to your existing clients. And therein lies the challenge that you'll face. Once you become the go-to firm in your area, and that's not very difficult to do when you start to do the right things and to start do that education-based marketing that I talk about. Once you become the go-to firm in your area, you'll need to figure out how to tell people that you're not the right firm for them. Because not everybody's going to be qualified to work with you. Not everybody's going to be your ideal client. Now, this is difficult when they come to you wanting to work with you, and then you tell them that you can't. This is also where I see a huge opportunity for the new CFP graduates. If more companies commit to building their business and creating the problem of having to turn away clients, then they will be more inclined to hire new CFPs to assist them with the overflow. Anyhow, these are my thoughts. Now, let's get to the feature segment.
And now for our feature segment.
There are lots of moving parts to manage when it comes to your fee-based financial planning practice. Lots, and I mean lots. You see, I just listen to some of the categories that you'll be managing that will have multiple projects in each category. So we're going to start off with things like, well, I mean, if you know anything about the strategic coach, you know about the front office, back office thing. Okay, well, I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Dan Sullivan likes to call it the front stage, backstage. So let's talk about that. So let's talk about this front stage or front office side of things. Well, some of the projects you're going to be working on would be things like how your office looks when you walk in, the client experience when someone comes into your office, marketing, networking, working with centers of influence, your planned deliverable, how it looks, your new client welcome kit. In the back office or backstage things would be things like, your workflow management, technology, your printing, your staffing, your strategic projects, marketing development, and on and on and on. It just keeps going. So how do you manage all of these projects and all of the people working on each project so that you don't get stalled on the project completion. You always meet your deadlines and everything is easily managed. It's a simple answer. It's called systems. Systems are your lifeline to keeping all of this organized. You need to set yourself up for success. And in this day and age, setting up an Excel spreadsheet to keep track of your projects is going to very quickly get overwhelming. Then consider that once you finally get a project completed, oftentimes you need to do the same thing over and over again. So the importance of mapping out how you do what you do so your staff can do it is of the utmost importance. Well, for those of you who have listened to this show for a while, you know that I utilize a lot of technology in my practice. Now, I do this because I guess I am. I do this because I'm a geek and I've done this all my life. It's because I have a few rules that govern my use of technology that have never let me down. Actually, I'm not that much of a geek. I just, I kind of tend to gravitate to some geeky things. Anyhow, rule number 1, okay? These are the rules. There's only 2 rules, and if you can follow these, you'll never go astray. Rule number 1, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And rule number 2, if you can and it will lead to more profits, then you should. Let's look at a few examples. So the first one we're going to look at is Salesforce.com, a great program and the one that I use in my practice. Now, not saying it's the best, although I think it is, but I'm saying that it allows me to do what I need to do. And yes, it can do a whole lot more. But let's apply rule number 1 here. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. I've used things like Maximizer, Act, Outlook, Goldmine, and I've made each one, kind of tap out. They couldn't keep up with what I was asking it to do. My IT company kept telling me that we were one of the only companies who was actually using the technology to its fullest extent, and that's why I kept crashing it. So this tells me that a lot of companies don't expect their customers to use the software fully, but we did, and we kept running into capacity issues. Then I embraced what you know today as cloud computing. This made all the difference, but I got smarter. To start off with, I was now not limited to my own computer or computer server's power or capacity, and this was a huge plus. So when I decided to purchase access to Salesforce.com, the salesperson told me that they had already created a template that I could use to get my system up and running quickly. Now, remember rule number 1. This is where I slammed on the brakes. How did they know what information I needed to track? I looked at their template and found that one of the most common issues we as fee-based financial planners face is the lack of education in that an investment plan is not a financial plan. Well, in the computer world, they also don't get it. And their template was made for an investment firm. Sure, investments are a component of a business, of our business, but what about all of the other components? So I made the best decision I've ever made when it comes to software. I told them to give me the bare bones version, and I would add the fields I wanted as I needed them. I mean, this is one of the real strong points about cloud computing. It's easy to build on. The biggest benefit, and this is, also kind of a drawback, is that you can pretty much do anything on a cloud solution. A lot of what you can do should really be tested with the just because you can doesn't mean you should test. So I built my CRM from the ground up, adding things, in other words, fields and that sort of thing, as they were needed. I then began to ask a lot of questions, such as, how do you automate things like this? How do you, how can you move things over here? How can I do this on this screen, but just not on the other screen? Or how can I take this opportunity and customize it so it just applies to financial planning, but take this opportunity and customize it so that it just applies to insurance or something like that? Then they told me what I could do, and then I kept an eye out for routine things that happened so that I could put the automation workflows in place to make sure things happened the same way over and over again. So once I really sort of built out the system and said, okay, this is what I want it to do, and then I recognized the areas that were happening over and over again, I asked the question, can I automate this? Well, that's where, some amazing results came from. And, and I highly recommend that you start asking those types of questions as well. Now, one of the next programs I use extensively is a program that I don't know. Some of you probably know about it. Some of you don't. If you don't know about it, I highly recommend you go check it out. It's called Basecamp. This is one of the most powerful and simple programs I've ever used. It seems, to embrace what I call logical steps. Now, logical steps to me are just simply the most logical next step in a series of steps to get something done. So what do I use Basecamp for? Well, managing projects primarily. Now, Salesforce, can it do the can it manage projects for me? Absolutely, it probably can. But why don't I use Salesforce to manage projects? That's the big question. And the answer is really quite simple. The simple answer is that not all of my projects are handled by me and my staff. I oftentimes use third parties, and I needed a way of bringing them into the project without giving them access to anything else in my business. It was two things. It was kind of a privacy issue, plus it was a cost issue, because at the time, and maybe this has changed since, but at the time, I would have to actually buy more licenses for Salesforce to then give other people access to the system in a limited way, but they'd have to use some of the licenses. Well, it just wasn't cost effective for me to do that. And this is where Basecamp comes in. So what I do is I list each project that I'm working on in Basecamp as a project. Then within each project are a series of to-do lists that you would need to follow in order to finish a section of the bigger project. So here's an example. Let's say I wanted to do another show for this podcast, okay? So the project name would be the name of the podcast episode. The next thing I do is I break down the project into the major components of what needs to get done. So for a podcast show, it's very simple. The major components are: you need to record the show, you need to edit the show, you need to post the show, and then you need to promote the show. So in each one, then there's sort of a to-do list of how to record a show, how to edit a show, how to post a show, and how to promote the show. And these are the things that we do every single time. So under the recording of a show, how do you record the show? Well, it's simple. Determine the episode topic. That's my job. Create the show outline. That's my job. Record the show. That's my job. Then upload the recordings for editing. Now we're in the editing of the show list. That's my job. Download the files to edit. Well, we've got an editor that does that. Send the WAV file to me for review. So the editor knows when he's done, he needs to send it to me to review it. So I can just, have a quick listen to make sure that it's the way I like it. Then I review the show and make any necessary changes. Then we post the show. Now, doing that, somebody's got to render the file into an MP3 file on iTunes. And what we've done is we've created a how-to video on how to do that. So when you're in Basecamp and you get to that step and it's your job, and this is the great thing about this, is that if it could be anybody's job, and the question is, how do I do that? Well, it's very simple. Click on the link and it will start a video playing. And all I've done is I recorded myself doing it once so that somebody could follow the steps. Then you go through and you update the tags in the MP3 file. Again, I've got a how-to video on how to do that. You upload the show to our cloud storage server. I've got a video on how to do that. So it basically says I can hand this off to somebody and say, okay, this is your step. And even if it was your first day in my office and it was the first day you were ever doing this, you would just simply click on the video and it tells you exactly how to do it. Then you promote the show. And this is where a marketing person comes in. So they post the show on our website. They run the SEO on the show episode, making sure that it's all search engine optimized and all that sort of stuff. They schedule the show for delivery on whatever the due date is. They create the tweets for the show so we can get the promotion out there. All the social media gets created for the show, all that sort of stuff, and it keeps going and going and going. Now, a lot of this, I was basically just there at the beginning. I basically would show up. I knew I had to record the show. I'd record the show and I'd get the files up there, and then the team would take over. Well, I'm able to monitor where things are and how things are coming along because I can see the entire project at a glance, and I can see where things are because every time somebody finishes their stage, they just simply go and they click the checkbox beside it, and it turns it off, and the next item basically comes up that needs to get done. And when you see, if you're monitoring your shows or your projects, and you see suddenly you're next on the list and your name suddenly hits the top of the list, then it's up to you. All eyes are on you to get that done. So, it's a pretty amazing tool. Now, here's the really awesome part. Now that you've completed an outline for how to do it, how to do a certain project. And if the project is something that you're going to do on a regular basis, so in this case for me, it's like a podcast episode, or could be writing a financial plan, could be sending out a marketing campaign, whatever you want it to be, you can actually template the steps so that whenever you want to activate that particular marketing program or project, you just click on the template button and click activate. This then assigns everyone who's part of the team and basically notifies them that they've been included in the project. So what we do is we go through and say, okay, is there anything we're doing on a regular basis? And this actually kind of helps in building out our marketing plan. So basically then you're going to, what allows you to do is to create an inventory of templates for how to do reoccurring projects. And I'd recommend that you start with your marketing calendar. So here's how I would take it first of all. Take a look. So, once you've got Basecamp, and it's pretty inexpensive, it's all cloud-based. You just basically sign up for a starter package if you want, and then it limits on the number of projects you can do, and then you get to the larger plans like we have that will allow you to do an unlimited number of projects, but then it limits the capacity of the data you can upload. So, they've got their different pricing model, but it means you can start out for really, really, really inexpensive cost. So what I'd recommend you do is if you grab this, take a look and create a marketing calendar for yourself. Take a look at your marketing plan 1 quarter at a time. More than that, to me, is just simply too overwhelming and too daunting. Then make a list of all the different marketing campaigns you're either doing or would like to do. So my list includes things like, podcasting, free report flyer drops, social media, recording interviews with other professionals, client, their electronic newsletters, my blog, all that sort of stuff. And I just make a list of all those things. Then put a note beside each campaign as to the frequency of each campaign. So for example, I do the podcast and I release it on the 1st and 15th of each month. The free report flyer drop could be an every 2-week thing. Social media, that could be, sent out and scheduled on a weekly basis. Recording interviews with other professionals, maybe that's a once a month thing. Client e-newsletter, again, that could be a once a month thing. Your blog, maybe you want to have a couple blogs a month, so you put them out on maybe the 7th and the 28th of each month. Now, put a Basecamp template together for each campaign. So in other words, you need to create an initial to-do list for getting the campaign done from start to finish. And just do that once, and then use that as the basis for your template. So what you're going to do is you're going to create the template with the last step stating the frequency of the campaign and to create the next campaign based on that project's template. So in other words, you're going to, when you're going through and you've created your initial run through of whatever the project is, and then you recognize this is something I want to do over and over and over again, create a template and just make sure the last step in the template is when you get to the end of this, create another project for the next one. And that will help you get ahead of your projects. This means that you'll work on each project independently of one another, which allows you to stay on top of what needs to be done to get it out the door. But you'll always know what project to create next, because when you get to the end of it, it's going to say, now do this, go to the template and create another project for the next episode, for the next campaign, whatever it happens to be. And organize each template type with a 3-letter abbreviation, all caps, so that you can keep them organized in Basecamp. So what we do is, for the fee-based podcast that we're doing right now, I simply start each show with the letter FEE. And so when I go to the project list in Basecamp, it groups them all together, and I can see them all grouped by numerical order and whatever. And it just allows me to know exactly where things are at. I can very quickly click on it and see where things are. Now that you've got the makings of a really organized way of managing your projects, the ability to include various other people in your projects is awesome, as you can assign various tasks to others who are not even part of your organization, and they're notified when their tasks come up. So, if you're working with, we use virtual assistants, and so if you're working with a virtual assistant, they're not part of your business necessarily. They're, it could be halfway around the world for that matter. Well, it's very simple that you use Basecamp, and that's how you communicate with them. You can upload your projects, you can upload your files, download samples, you can communicate via email back and forth, and it just seems to really keep things organized for you. Now, you've got the makings of a really, really organized calendar. Now, a couple of little tricks. add your Basecamp calendar. Remember I talked earlier about having your Google account set up. Well, in Google, you've got, or your Gmail, you've got a calendar program. So what you can do is you can add your Basecamp calendar as a marketing calendar that shows up in your Google Calendar. So when you're in your Google Calendar, you can literally go to the left side and say, okay, I want to see all the marketing the projects that are being worked on right now and where they're at with everything. And you can click on it, and then all of a sudden it shows all the marketing things that need to get done on the days they're supposed to get done. You can then set alarms on those tasks so that it alarms you maybe at the beginning of the week that you have to do it. So it's a pretty cool way of organizing things. And it brings me back to, I was talking with somebody, another CFP student, and I just got a sense that, they really wanted to join a great firm because they didn't have a lot of capital to start their own practice and start their own client base. Well, I said, basically, you don't need a lot of capital. You can do this for really, really inexpensively. And as soon as you then go through the process and sell your first fee, suddenly you're going to have more revenue coming in, which will allow you to keep on reinvesting back into your business. And by reinvesting back in your business, that's where you can turn your marketing into a free program. If it costs me $1 to get a new client that's going to make me $4 or $5, where's the cost in that? It doesn't really cost anything because all I'm doing is I'm exchanging dollar bills for $5 bills. Well, geez, I'll do that all day long. So look at marketing a little bit differently. It's not an expense. It's basically an investment that's going to simply magnify the worth of whatever you invest into it, as long as you do it properly. Another thing that a little trick you can do is embed links within each task using how-to for how-to videos. So when your team members need to know, how to do something to complete a certain task, they simply just click on the link in the video and it starts. So that's a pretty cool one, because what I found was that by assigning these tasks and putting these templates together, I can actually assign things to other people who maybe it's their first time getting that assignment. But if I attach a how-to video on exactly how to do it, well, then all of a sudden they don't need to call me. So when I'm putting together my first template, that's when I say, okay, I'm going to record what it is that I do. So you've got the screen capture video. And then when I get to that section in the template, I just simply cut and paste that section of the video into the Basecamp project, and voila, it shows up there. And whenever anybody has any questions, they just go to the link, click on it, and it plays that section of the video for them. So it's a pretty amazing tool. You can also, and this is one of the things I do to keep my mind mapping program, which MindMeister is the program, how I keep my mind mapping program linked in with my projects in Basecamp. Because what you can do is, because it's all cloud-based, every page on the cloud has its own unique URL. Well, if you're in the project for that particular project that you're working on, you can actually copy that URL and paste it into your mind map for your ideal week. So you can say, okay, this is the project I want to work on, paste that link in there. So when you click on that node, it basically says, okay, you want to go to this project, and boom, it opens it up. So you don't even have to go and, it just feels like it's a seamless program that you're working with. So whether you're working solo, internally with a team, or with an external team, Basecamp is your ace in the hole that will allow you to keep things organized. Definitely take advantage of that. It's something that has made a huge difference in my business, and I'd highly recommend that you take advantage of that as well. These tools have allowed me to simply accomplish a lot. They simply allow me to organize my big picture into bite-sized chunks. You see, there really are a lot of moving parts in a fee-based financial planning practice, sometimes too many moving parts. And I just recognized that. So what I did was I said, I'm going to put the tools in place to manage all those parts. In a previous episode, I spoke about using your V2 Mom to organize the year. Definitely take advantage of that, because the V2 Mom is really your starting point. It allows you to get your vision down on paper. Then I recommend you lay out your marketing plan by quarter, and just, use the process we just talked about here. Then lay out your ideal week. And this is sort of the process that I go through at the beginning of each year, or at the beginning of every planning period. So start off with the big picture, do the V2 Moms to get your sort of vision clarity. Then I recommend you going to the marketing plan and laying everything out quarter by quarter so you know what you need to get done. Then simply lay out your ideal week on a weekly basis. Execute that weekly plan, And whenever you need to know what to do next, look to your weekly plan's 3 critical must-dos. I can't tell you how many times I do this. I'm busy and I start off at the beginning of the day and I just keep on working. And sometimes I get tired. And when you get tired, you're not thinking very clearly. And so what it allows you to do is say, okay, I know I've got things to do. What's my next highest priority thing? Well, you've already spent the time figuring it out, so don't question it. I always go back to my ideal week, take a look at it. Whatever the next thing is on the list, I focus on that. I don't get caught up in a lot of the other things. I don't get caught up in, surfing LinkedIn or surfing Facebook or Google Plus or online or whatever it happens to be. I just don't get caught up in that. What I do is I set myself up so that I can always stay focused on what I need to do. If you finish all of your critical must-dos quickly, turn to your Basecamp project list and then find the next to do. So basically, when you're creating your ideal week and you've mapped out those 3 critical must-dos, really that's the most important thing. But let's say you get finished those because sometimes I get finished those in one day. Well, then I've got the rest of the week that I can start focusing on other things. And if I've laid out what are the projects I'm going to turn to in case that happens, well, then I don't have to think twice about it. I just simply go grab it and do it, knowing it needs to get done. And this will, I use Salesforce opportunities to track the financial plans that I'm working on. So I personally don't track my financial plans through Basecamp. Not to say that you can't, but I just don't, because anything client related to me is in Salesforce. Anything project related outside of client related projects are on Basecamp. I use Salesforce opportunities to do all the tracking of that. I use Basecamp to manage all of the strategic projects. I use MindMeister to lay out my ideal week. And then I attack each week to try to get as many things done on Mondays as I can. And I've talked about this in the past, but that's my power day. That's the day where I just buckle down and I do everything in my power to get everything for that week done on the Monday. And I've talked about it in previous episodes. So my ideal week kind of looks like this. On a Monday, I prepare for the week's meetings. I complete as many of the 3 critical must-dos as possible. Those are the only things I do on a Monday. Everything else goes by the wayside. I focus on get ready for the meetings. And then once you've done that, focus right on to the strategic projects and start with number 1, 2, or 3, whichever one you can move forward the quickest, and just focus on them. Don't let yourself get sidetracked. Then on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that's when I have client meetings. And so all my meetings get booked then. It's kind of cluster booking the way that happens. So if I have, say, 2 meetings that day, then my assistant knows to put them both back to back. If they have 12 to 15 meetings, then it's just a matter of just laying them all out and making sure they're all prepared for. So, definitely, take advantage of that. And then on Fridays are kind of I don't know what you call it. I guess Friday is really a catch-all day. I mean, it's a cleanup of loose ends day. I do the live coaching calls for our fee-based financial planning mastery academy on Fridays. So we've got some time carved out for that. And then I actually prepare for the weekend. I mean, the best thing you can do to have a great free day or great time off is to prepare well for it. Don't just show up and say, okay, I'm going to take today off, because then that day it'll just run away from you. Well, what I recommend you do is you just simply say, listen, this is the type of day I'd like to have, so I'm going to plan to make sure that day can happen. And I would really, really focus on doing that, because preparing for the free days is just as important as preparing for the meetings. Then nothing falls through the cracks. Everything gets done on time, and life is quite a bit less stressful because things are just simply getting done. Remember what I said. If you want something done, give it to a busy person. Busyness forces people to get organized. Hopefully these tools will allow you, to do the same. They're tools that I've used, and I'm so glad that I was exposed to these tools, because they have made a world of a difference for me, and I hope they will for you. So now get out there and build yourself a better business.
You've been listening to Scott E. Plaskett, a certified financial planner and industry veteran in the world of fee-based financial planning. Want free resources to help you build a better fee-based financial planning firm? Visit ilovefinancialplanning.com right now to register for Scott's Inner Circle email list, where you'll get front-of-the-line updates on the latest resources that are driving profits to Scott's fee-based financial planning practice. All of the resources are pulled directly from the highly acclaimed Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery Academy. Go now to ilovefinancialplanning.com. Build a better business and make more money with your fee-based financial planning practice today.